about search, Sean. This is another Chat with Sean episode. And yeah, it's going to be another awesome show. As usual, I'll do some housekeeping, then we get on to our great guest today. But yeah, generally, we've got so much going on the channel. As usual, I've spoken to Christian J. Ward from Yext. It's all about the local SEO data, another piece of data they've been publishing recently around search behaviors, user behaviors. You can find it, the video, I put a link. But yeah, he's really great. He's the second time on the channel and he's awesome. So definitely watch that one. And then recently I've had Miriam Jessia and Julia Panozzo on to talk about psychology behind search, basically. And they had a whole slide deck and everything. It's awesome, really entertaining conversation. So I put the link there as well. But yeah, check it out. And there's slides as well, so you can go and check them out. But yeah, I'll get on to my great guest next. And yeah, someone I met at a networking event, and he was so like intelligent, so really knew his stuff. And I was like, yeah, I definitely have to get this guy on the show. So I did, and I'll tell you a bit more about him. But Jon Goodey is the founder of Indexify, a London-based digital marketing agency that combines AI, data, and automation to deliver intelligent SEO and content strategies. With a background in software development, Jon focuses on building AI-powered systems that streamline decision-making, reporting, and performance measurement for clients across multiple industries. So yeah, welcome, Jon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to digging into some topics. You know, there's a lot to go over. As everyone knows, I go bang on about all the time, a lot going on in search. And I'll just put this at the bottom for everyone to see. But basically, I'm trying to push this and it's still not taking off that much, but I'm still pursuing it. And it's just a WhatsApp channel. So if you want to get the latest on what's going on on the channel, and generally I've shared the big stories and insights from the world of digital marketing. So if people want to go and check that out on WhatsApp, then obviously it's free. So you can do that. So we get into the topics, Jon, and, you know, I guess I was very intrigued about Indexify. How is it different to other agencies, would you say?
Well, firstly, I'm going to obviously check out your link. I'm going to make sure I join that channel. It'll be probably the only unrunning related WhatsApp channel I'll be in for a while. So yeah, no, I'll join that. But yeah, so I'd say I Indexify, what I tried to do, which is kind of slightly different to traditional agencies, is I've always seen all of my clients as they are the experts. They know their industry, whether it be things like finance related topics or something to do with more fashion based or whatever areas that they are focused in. They know their products better than I will. So what I like to do is be able to augment their knowledge. What I do is by doing that, what I do is I try and automate anything that we can do to make their lives easier for themselves. So I use AI quite extensively, as I think a lot of people know, to try and automate things like competitor analysis, keyword intelligence, reporting, strategy developments and stuff like that. Using my own knowledge and experience, I can then check on that information and make sure that we're doing things the right way. And also, because I've come from a software development background as well, I also build like custom tools, interactive calculators, ROI calculators, and things like that for clients, widgets for them, other things that will make their pages stand out different from just a wall of text on the page. Also doing things, it just allows, I do things like the vibe coding. I think that's a term that it's now being used as, but it really does speed up the way you can get applications live so quickly. And it means that you can create like an A/B test very quickly and be running different versions of the page. You can move elements around. There's so many different things that you can do very quickly to actually get ideas out there and see what works.
Yeah, cool. And it'll be obviously good to hear some examples as we go through the topics to see the kind of things you are doing. I know you're getting up to a lot. So yeah, be interesting to hear. Generally on, you know, because it's a difficult market at the moment. Obviously the economy doesn't help with the way everything is right now, but how do marketing agencies stay relevant in today's world? Obviously you're doing a few innovative things, but it's going to be a tricky, with search changing so much, with AI getting introduced so much. Generally, businesses may be trying to cut back or making sure they're spending the budgets wisely. Yeah. What's your thoughts there?
I think the main thing staying relevant today is about what I've probably been saying for quite a while now, is AI will create mediocre to good content a lot of the time very easily. So the barrier to entry is a lot higher now. So if you want to compete, you've got to be creating something that's better. It's pointless just creating something that already exists or trying to make something slightly better than that's there. Do something different, be creative with it. It allows you the ability to do the basics very quickly and then use your own knowledge, your experience, your creativity to actually create something that's better than what's already out there. I think that's one of the things that's going to make the biggest difference. I think keeping stuck on old tactics, you just sort of productizing the approach doesn't kind of work as well. I've tried to see if there's ways of doing that in the past, but I just don't think that each client's different. Each need is slightly different. Each industry is so different that unless you are very much focused on one area, it's very hard to just create it as a boilerplate system. You have to be doing something different from what's already being done.
No, I think you're right. In terms of the next topic, what interesting things have you learned recently about AI? So there's so much out there in terms of, like you say, there doesn't seem to be one shoe fits all, but there's a lot of insights being shared and case studies and people's opinions.
I think it's quite interesting. So obviously there was a massive hype even end of last year about GPT-5 and the artificial intelligence level that we're going to reach at that point. But if you look at it, it's not that. It's incrementally better than the previous versions. It adds in that other layer that you go, okay, well, it doesn't need to think for you on every occasion. Sometimes it can just be a standard LLM. Sometimes it needs to go through more of a process. But personally, what I can see is really shifting heavily over the last 6 months and is going to make a massive difference over the next year will be the personalization level. The memories, if you look at things like ChatGPT, you look at Claude, you look at the big applications that people are using at the moment, and they're all allowing you to speak to other chats. They know that their context window is finite. And although you can get like 1 million context window tokens and things like that, it's still limited to what can be done. However, they've realized that if you can start speaking and relating to previous conversations, you can then grow that even further. So you can create a conversation around an entire client. Also, with the advent of tools coming in as well, the MCP connectors, this allows you to then speak to other platforms in a similar way. You can then be speaking to your Notion folder, for instance, or you can be speaking to your Google Drives. You can be getting the information from your recent meeting notes around there as well. OpenAI bought out applications yesterday. So it is fascinating how things are just changing and growing so quickly in front of us at the moment. They're just not stopping. All of the big players are just pushing this so hard. But again, it's all about personalization. We're not going to making these models 10 times better. We're making them 10 times more personalized at the moment. So that's where I see things going, is having your own personal assistant that will work on your phone, will work on your computer, and you can get to that point. Obviously, I think like Google and Siri were trying to do this 5 or 10 years ago, but they were just way off the mark with it. And now we're going to come to a point that you will be able to pick up your phone and say, okay, what have I got on today? Can you plan out my routine based on that? I want to do a gym session, or I want to do a run today, and it'll start personalizing everything around you. Oh, well, best time to do it is 8 o'clock because the weather is certain temperature and it's not going to rain till 10 or something along those lines. It's going to say your first meeting's at this time. So that'll give you a buffer to get everything ready for it. We know this is a longer or a shorter meeting. It'll start getting your meeting. It'll start looking at your meeting notes. It'll start getting you prepared for that meeting. 30 minutes, 40 minutes before you have a call, it'll start coming up. You can do a lot of this stuff already. And I use things like Cursor and other tools as well to be able to create like containers for each client, each segment of my life, really, my work and personal lives and things like that. And each one there, if you start referencing these folders, you can then get a lot better personalization and a lot better responses from them.
Yeah, I think we went from like wanting an abundance of options and choice. Like we wanted loads of choice, and now we're kind of going to a point where we actually want it to be more refined and more personal to what we want. We're kind of being so like bombarded with choice, like we've got too much. Like we wanted more TV channels, and now we've got so many TV channels we can't even find what we want to watch, even though we've got like thousands more than we've ever had before. We find it harder to find something to watch. So if you had something to tell you like this sort of thing, this is where you need to go at this time. I know it's like not a marketing related thing, but obviously it kind of fits in.
We're in the data science world, I think they call it paralysis by analysis. That choice, having too much choice isn't always a good thing. So we see that with marketing as well, where we put a box, or normally you'll get like 3 options and things like that. It'll draw people to the middle one and other things that we do for a marketing concept. So it is giving people not a choice overload, which does actually help. And I think you look at how ChatGPT is trying to evolve into an ecosystem. They've got Sora 2 that's just come out with their videos. It's now becomes they want to do it as a social app on there as well. I think we're going to have a whole new, there's obviously one for another day, but a discussion around how they're going to fit into the whole like social media side of things. Are people going to resonate or want that? What's it good? That kind of AI content. I don't know. I personally sit on the fence with that. I don't think that I think people are going to start getting less trusted to content online. They're going to go, okay, well, this isn't real. And they're going to go more to these kind of podcasts where they can see 2 people sitting there genuinely talking in an interview.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I watch a podcast called Moonshots that's really good. And they were discussing on their recent one about this. And obviously with all the new generative AI tools that are coming out, like Sora 2 and stuff, that just incredible, like how far it's advanced. And this is like, I always say, but the worst that AI is ever going to be at this stage. What? So you think how powerful it is now. They're saying we could move into a case where, because people are a bit, I'm talking generally, but people are a bit overwhelmed with social media and things like that. There's so many platforms, so many messages and stuff, and you don't know what's real, what isn't real. It might become more like and with movies, people getting a bit tired of the same old storylines, the same old thing. If it goes more into a generative aspect where you create your own film, you create your own media, your own assets, like a more generative era where everything is just basically you can personalize it towards what you actually want to see. I don't know. And people said on the past, I can't remember, I think it was one of the women in tech panel shows I had, but talking about everyone's pretty much going to have like their own personal search engines going forward in terms of like just personalized to what they want to see, I know they're already trying to do that kind of function, but literally their own search engine, not like a Google or whatever, but
will be personalized inside of that. And I think I've probably made some criticisms in the past where people are using, like, they're trying to show you how well you're performing in AI search and stuff like that. And there's a lot of tools, and they're charging quite a lot for these tools at the moment. And it's very hard to, how do you know what search is being done by that person? How's that replicating to the next person who's got completely different memory within their ChatGPT, and they're going to be doing completely different searches? Are going to be added from that as well. So you'll get to a point that how do we measure that?
Yeah. And that kind of leads us on a bit to the next topic. Before we get onto that, how do you think, if any, that apart from the usual, I guess, marketing channels and routes, but how can brands actually affect, being brought up in these sort of conversations and memories?
Well, obviously, I think a lot of the search results come through from higher domain authority. So you've got to be, I personally think things like digital PR is going to become more prevalent. Being seen within larger media sites are going to be more important because they are just trusted resources, and growing yourself to be that trusted resource within your own niche. I think those are some of the main areas that people are going to need to do slightly differently. I wouldn't say completely differently, because those are kind of tactics that people are using at the moment and have been using for many years. It's things that work. But instead of just looking at your website and going, okay, well, we need to create, I don't know, 100,000 articles because that's what our competitor has done. What can we do where can we get seen that they're not? And is it on a different media? Is it that people are looking on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, for instance? Have you got a audience on a different platform? Don't just be siloed into thinking, well, we've got to do A to get B. We've got to just do SEO like this. And it's kind of that basic steps along the way. I think you've got to think outside the box and go, well, how can we do things that someone else isn't necessarily doing? Or what can we do that's better than them in that way? Are they using a different media type, such as video or audio?
Yeah. I think Christian Ward brought up that kind of thing when it comes to local. My day-to-day job with Macmillan, we have loads of different products and services and campaigns and stuff. And when I look at the market data, there are like different trends and patterns. Like you say, there's different platforms that have a lot more strengths in other areas than the other ones, like YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, or the competitors are doing certain, like Christian was saying, like in the local results, it may be the case that, yeah, some of your competitors have got more reviews than you, but it might just also be the case they've just got a few more images and a few more details about what they have on their, products and services or whatever. It really does vary. So it's worth digging into that.
Yeah.
And in terms of how can companies improve their data-driven decision making? Because obviously that's something you really focusing on at your agency, making those, data-based decisions and stuff. So yeah, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts.
I think really is utilizing the systems for what you can do with them now. Most of the models now have got reasoning, thinking processes built into them. They all have this kind of agent layer as well that you can use you can pull them in to use different tools along the way. So what I think is making sure that you're putting decent quality data into those systems along the way. If you're not giving them accurate, decent information, then you're going to get, I think the data analysis term of garbage in, garbage out seems to always apply. And you are going to get hallucinations. I wrote an article on LinkedIn a while ago about this, and they are part of the models themselves. Right? As human beings, we hallucinate. We do forget. I think if we spoke about the event that we went to, we'd probably have slightly different versions of it in different ways, because as humans, our memories are not perfect. We are humans. It's basically as simple as that. So thinking that AI models are not going to hallucinate is a false economy. We've got to be working with it. So it's understanding that the data you're feeding with it is good. It's in the right format. You've cleaned it beforehand, and you can even use models to clean the models, which is great. Because if you're not giving it the right, for instance, if you pulled in like a Google Analytics report into an LLM model, it will struggle to start with, because the first 6 or 7 rows of that is all to do with, well, the standard bit that goes into there on the CSVs, and it's all to do with like the dates and Google Analytics and stuff like that. It's only once it gets to that 7th row. So you've either got to build something like a Python script that will remove all of that for you before you start doing it if you want to automate the process, or look at removing it manually. Just remove those lines. You can do that in Excel, Google Sheet, and then feed it in a clean CSV document. That way you're gonna get better results from the models because you're giving it better data to start with in a format that it wants, and it can read correctly. If not, it's going to make errors on those. So it's making sure that you are giving it the information that it needs to be able to do it. The other thing is checking everything that comes out. Don't just trust the results. You will find errors consistently throughout the things. You want to be using the models to be able to speed up your process, to do that bit in the middle, know what the data is before you fed into it, and then check it again afterwards. People who are leaving that data in there or trusting in AI to do to do their job for them is not going to be in a very good position because there are going to be mistakes.
Yeah, I think context is so important as well. Like when, like you said, with like, the analytics stuff, if you just chuck in a bunch of data and said, analyze this for me with no context behind what it is and what it represents and what you're trying to get out of it, it just usually spits out anything and it takes it right down a different route that you even wanted it to go down. So that context, and I mean, I'm sure it's going to get smarter, but at this stage, I think really explaining what each area, it really always depends on what part of kind of data it is, but explaining what each thing actually represents and then what your goals and objectives are for what you're trying to achieve, being quite clear on that. I think people, and I've probably done it myself 100%, but rush the kind of process because you just want the outcome. But actually the preparation is like, if you put time in to actually prep the data, prep the prompts, you're going to get a much better outcome, I guess.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think it's worth remembering that as soon as you start a new chat with Claude or ChatGPT or whatever platform you decide to use, Gemini, for instance, it's brand new to that. It's got no understanding whatsoever of what you're asking it to do. It's so easy as humans for us to understand context and what's going on behind things and take that for granted. Whereas I think I've mentioned it before, it's kind of like having a PhD student to some extent with realms of knowledge behind it, but it has no idea what you're asking it. And this is fascinating. I think it's a really interesting conversation when you come to like learning languages and things like that. When you're starting learning language, you get to a level that maybe you can start conversing with people. If you come into a conversation where two people are talking, it's very hard to pick up and understand the conversation. Whereas if you start talking a conversation one-on-one with someone, you know the context, you can then kind of start defending yourself in those environments. So it's very similar to natural language and how we learn languages themselves.
Yeah, I think people are kind of just expecting miracles and chucking it in. But AI is obviously very intelligent. They've got like all the knowledge there, but they still need to be told, because we've seen it in, in actual examples. When you give the AI a very broad set of instructions, it can take it very literal. And I think like, I saw an example where they were trying to land a plane. They said, get the plane down and but basically to get it on the ground and, that kind of thing. When they kept crashing it, like, because they didn't say, oh, and also don't crash it and protect everyone's lives. It was just get it down there by such and such, and also like, there's loads of examples of that when AI is taking it so literal to do the end thing, but actually it wouldn't be practical in real life where that was the case,
Yeah, because you take for granted those kind of things. You forget that the kind of nuances whenever you drive a car. I remember when I was first learning to drive a car, And you remember sitting in that car with the instructor in there, and they go, you go adjust your mirrors, you go do the back mirrors, your side mirrors, you got your brakes, your clutch, your accelerator, you've got the gears, you've got the indicator, everything like that. You sitting there, how on earth am I going to learn all this? And then after a few years of driving, you go, how was that even complicated? Because you get used to doing that process, but you go remember that the AI it's not got that knowledge of what you've just taken for granted on there. So I think a really good point that people need to remember when they are using these models. And the memory functions are going to get these models a lot better. There's also a lot of ways that you can use tools already and not reinventing prompts and things like that. So I can have a set of like tone of voice prompts. I can have a set of like background prompts and things like that for different clients, for different situations. And that can be migrated across to different platforms. One of the things that AI does very well is the speed of reading through those documentation. So Notion, for instance, is one company that is doing a very good job on this at the moment. And now their AI tool allows it to search for through your documents within there, and you can isolate the folders that you want it to look through and things like that. But it makes you see such a big difference when you start saying, okay, well, I want you to look through this client folder, and you've got 10, 20 or 100 documents in there for that client, and it scans through all of those quickly. Notebook LM, again, is another fantastic use for this as well. And the way that you can import all of those documents in there and start talking to those documents.
Yeah, great tools. And obviously you stated about automation, but what are the best ways to use AI automation to understand users, improve reporting, and optimize content in your sort of experiences?
Okay, so I do sway quite heavily. I think there's different tools for different people, and I'm not saying which one's better or worse, but I tend to use the cursor quite heavily. For me, it works. It feels at home from a developer, from an kind of software development background. It's like Visual Studio Code and things like that. You're working in an environment you're familiar with, and it's also platform agnostic as well. So although I think it uses Claude, well, at the moment it's 4.5 Sonnet by default. You can choose to use ChatGPT 5 or any other models that are in Gemini, for instance. They're all in there. So you can use whichever models. It will literally get the latest model within a day or so. So I'm a big fan of using it. It's also now got things like browser built into it by default. Before I'd built a MCP connector using something browser use, which is a nice little tool, because when you're looking at websites, especially if people are blocking crawlers and things like that, you want to be doing it in a way that you're looking at a website from a visual perspective as well as just the text and the markup that's on the page. So what I tend to use is I'll put all of that into a folder. I'll then put my crawl data into there as well. I'll use a set of things like Python scripts that are crawling and doing different analysis tasks on there as well. I'll then use a few different MCP connectors, primarily things like Data for SEO and Hrefs as well, who've recently bought out their MCP connector. I'll then put in feeds to things like Google Search Console, Google Analytics, things directly from things like WooCommerce, Shopify as well, and have all of those data feeding into that. So I've got my client's website from pretty much like a Screaming Frog crawl inside a folder. I've got all the analytics up to date in another section. And I've got basically my cursor LLM talking to all these documents on a constant basis. And if it doesn't know the results to it, it's using the Python scripts to run those queries and actually get the results I want from it. So that's kind of my workflow that I tend to use. It tends to, I think, Claude, you can do similar sort of things, but you are limited by the context window in there. I think a while ago, I was talking to some people. I think it was based on the Data for SEO connector, where it would go off and it would just blow up every time. So you would ask it to do like the keyword research for a certain topic, or you'd ask for the top 5 or top 10 competitors based on those particular keywords and things like that. And after a while, the context window would just limit out. And I'm a Max user on there as well. So I was like, well, we've got to be doing something differently here. And being able to create those as documents and then query those outside of that means that the context window doesn't get maxed out at any point, and you can be talking to the data, each part of the data along the way.
Well, that seems like the future. Like, yeah, sounds great. It'd be great to get like a sort of a case study, like a live demo, that kind of thing going forward, if we can put something else in, because I think people will be really interested to see that set up.
Yeah, I'm trying to put a couple of things together at the moment where I can like go through all of those processes and stuff. It's just getting time to finish it off and get that out there. But yeah, I've got a couple of things I've been working on recently. So yeah, that would be great to share with you once that's all in place.
I mean, I do some automation, but definitely, like, I think like many SEOs probably get quite intimidated by the whole thing, because it can be seems quite technical focus. But I think obviously all the tools are making it a lot more accessible for people who have less technical know-how to kind of get involved and do things with it. So, I mean, I'm not like a total novice, but even so, I'm dabbling. But yeah, it'd be really good to see like how that can be done. So yeah, definitely keep in touch, and we'll go through that. So, in terms of like, what should SEOs be focusing on these days, and what should they be ignoring? As we said before at the top of the show, like, there's a lot of noise out there at the moment. A lot of people saying, do this, don't do this. What's your thoughts on it all?
I think obviously you can probably tell I'm pro AI changes. I know a lot of people, there's always going to be kickback to changes. As humans, we don't always like change. So I think it's going to change things regardless of whether you're on board or not. There are flaws with AI and they do need addressing, and there are some big privacy issues. I've talked about things like personalisation that we've been speaking about. Unfortunately, around those areas, that means that you're accessing your own emails or documents, where people then start setting up things like malware, phishing, scripts and stuff like that. So there are things that companies are working on or needs to be worked on. I would like to shout out to Anthropic on that, because they are clearly the most open about it. So although they're not stopping, they are explaining the kind of pitfalls along those ways as well. So also, it's always worth looking at their documentation and making sure you're seeing what you need to do to mitigate it. If you're going to give access to certain things, what's the potential downfall on there as well? But yeah, I would say probably the biggest changes is that sort of moving away from that kind of endless reel of just text, that wall of text of content that people are creating. I think especially brands, e-commerce brands and stuff like that, you may only need a 300, 400, 500 word article or a page or something like that. You don't need to be putting the life story or the history of why something was invented on a recipe page, for instance. People just want to get the answers for that. I think I've mentioned that on different places in the past. But if someone wants to, they want to know the direction, or they want to know how to get some, or how to create a recipe. They just want to know what ingredients they need to buy, or how to cook that at the time. They don't need to know why the recipe was built or the history behind it. You can always research that at a later date. So it's thinking about creating the actual content for what people need, and not just creating content for the sake of it. Also, I think there's that kind of multimodal area to content. If you find your audience are resonating, this is why I think running the A/B tests and getting those answers back, or that user insights, as quickly as possible. Are they resonating 10 times better with audio or visual content? Do you need to be creating a lot of the words on the page? Could it just be an introduction text or something that explains it to make sure that you are visible within an AI overview? and then have a video on the page or something else that explains what's going on in a different format? Or is it that you need to use a different channel? Is it that your users sitting on TikTok whilst you're spending your time on Instagram? It makes such a big difference. I learned this, I think, the hard way. I run a daily newsletter on Substack for around 3 or 4 months. I used 11 labs to create like an audio version of it. I worked with a friend of mine at the time that we were trying to tweak it. He was giving me lots of advice on it. And, I think it would be better if it is in this format. I think I had about 3 or 4 subscribers. I'd done the same thing on LinkedIn, and I've got 500-600 subscribers in 3 months. So it's knowing where your audience are. And working to those areas. I also think that sometimes it will come to a point that the video on the page will get picked up as text as well. I think search engines will get to a point that they are indexing the videos as well as the text on the page. Obviously, we can see that to a lot of extent already, but that's to do with the descriptions and everything else you have to put within the videos, the tags and stuff on a YouTube video. It'll get to a point that they will be understanding that video content as well as it's reading the text on your page.
Yeah. And we've said that before, like the videos that I upload on YouTube, they flat out said, do you want us to use this in our training data for AI and stuff? And so they are using those scripts. And when Miriam and Julia was presenting, they were talking about context and how AI and generally Google read images and how they, context behind images and kind of read what's going on those certain pictures and stuff. So I think that's interesting in terms of just going back, because it's something I know a lot of people are interested in, the automation side, because I do feel like with the tools being given to us with AI and stuff now, automation becomes a bit more possible and probably more likely for a lot of people's workflows. Where's the best place for people to start with automation if they're not really sort of doing much yet?
I still think it's well worth learning the basics, because when you're creating the automation, to know what's going on behind the scenes, you don't have to, I don't think you need to learn to be the expert coder. I don't think that'll even exist in the future. But if you understand, if you can read Python code, if you can read JavaScript, HTML, CSS, you will be a long way ahead on that area. If you are running or creating an automation, you can use something like Gemini, ChatGPT, Cursor, whatever you decide to use. You can be feeding that. I think Windsurf, there's other tools out there, but you can be feeding it into and say, create me a script. When it creates a script, to be able to read that script back to yourself and use things like, what's some of the code? I used to use some years and years ago. Is it Code Academy or something like that?
Code Academy, yeah. I've used that, yeah.
Using those kind of tools just to understand learn the basics of what kind of scripts do, how they work, and being able to read back what's happened. That way you can tweak it. Sometimes you'll get into a tangle with trying to create an automation, whereas if you'd have just known that couple of lines of Python code, you could have fixed it yourself and you would have seen what that error is. The models are getting a lot better at correcting themselves, and the newer versions of Codex and things like that are fantastic now. But it's still worth just being able to go in, and there's no harm in going able to go into an automation once that script's been written and just be able to tweak it yourself. So I'd say my first areas would be to go to these tools and start learning the basics of coding, learn about Python, JavaScript. Those are the main languages that are being used at the moment. How does it get the information from a CSV document? How do you read like the head of it and things like that when you're using a Python script? It's those kind of things that are just simple things. And within, I don't know, I'd have probably said you spent a couple of hours a day, within a month, you would probably know a good part of what you need to know. You're not talking about years and years worth of development knowledge that you need.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're still saying it's still worth learning, because obviously you hear so many, again, mixed messages about it's not even worth going learning Python anymore because the AI have got it, just sussed. We don't need to even know anything about it, but it does make sense, at this stage for sure to still do that. And obviously you can either set up like a training program. I did kind of this in ChatGPT or something to like train you in terms of learning, and now they have these apps integrated into it. So it could be in a case that you could learn a lot of stuff via ChatGPT going forward. I don't even know how those apps are going to kind of work, so it's going to be interesting.
Well, they seem okay to some extent. I would still opt for going. I tested the Coursera, which was quite nice. Pricing was good. I tried booking as well on there as well, just to give it some examples. I prefer the visual aspect of actually seeing a booking page because I think, again, as humans, we can consume so much information quickly and pick the ones we want. We're very visual, whereas that's just saying, pick this hotel, pick this one, or something like that. And it's, I don't know. I think things will evolve and adapt over time, but there is going to be a massive divide, I think, with people with using AI tools over the next few years, decade, where there's going to be people who are using AI to become extremely intelligent, and there's going to be people that are using AI to cut corners and not learn. And I speak to a lot of friends who work in schools and teaching environments as well, and they're seeing this all the time. They're seeing people who are just handing in documents that have clearly been written in AI. It's completely different from what they've done. And they're also seeing students that are learning so much quicker from it. So it depends what side of the fence you want to sit on, really.
Yeah, it's like the internet generally, isn't it? Same principles. And yeah, I saw that in a university, and they put a trigger word in there. They put Dua Lipa hidden in the questioning, and then because some of them didn't check it, they just answered it using AI, and Dua Lipa was still in there. So the tutor knew that they had not even read it and run it through AI, and kind of just, but it was quite funny to get to kind of spot them, the ones using it. But yeah, and it just like.
So, and this is like what I was saying before about my clients. I say my clients are expert in what they've done and their industries. If I put some content together that I've researched, I found out information, there are times that they will just hammer that because they know, okay, well, that's old news. That's not relevant anymore. That's not worthy, or that's not relevant in our market. That's US based, or it's that's a legislation that's now out of date or is going to be changed. They'll pull it apart because they know they've learned what needs to be done. Like I was saying about learning the coding, you've got to know what you would expect the outcomes to be able to trust or use to work as the editor for an AI or an LLM document that you've created. You need to know more than what that's created or what that's been done.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where kind of AI isn't quite there yet. The AI search stuff is, and large language models is the nuances side of it, because like you say, like some of the AI overviews, that's what I've been involved with, like the charity side of it. And, knowing the difference between the UK health sector, even the UK health sector is broken up in different areas and has different processes versus the American side of it. And they sometimes quote the use the American health system. And like I say, even the UK one is fragmented in certain ways. So it's kind of like, they don't know their nuances yet when they're talking about like a certain treatment for a certain cancer. They're just kind of taking it as a whole thing. So yeah, it's going to be interesting how that improves down the line, which I'm sure they are. I know Google are working on better at being localized information and that kind of thing. So I'm sure that's going to happen. In terms of finishing off, I guess what's really interesting, especially lately with, we've had the whole thing with the search results, the top 100 search results, and all this kind of malarkey going on. Where do you see like the future of the SEO tools going? Because I mean, just from my perspective, I found that just using general, like the latest tools that they're giving us, like Google Live and the AI agents and the Google summaries and stuff. That's a really great insight actually to learn about how your content's performing and talking to it live and exploring your content and your processes and stuff. But yeah, I think some of these legacy tools are, like I say, they're either becoming very expensive because of these like new features that people are requesting around AI results. And yeah, I just find it interesting to hear your thoughts to finish off, really.
Well, I think SEO tools need to change quite dramatically. I think the barrier to entry to create a SaaS product is so low now, especially if you've got some coding ability. You can put together a clone of some of these tools in a very short period of time. So I think they need to lean on what their advantages are within a market. For instance, Hrefs have got a humongous database. They've got a lot of information out there. They also allow you to go straight into your own rank tracking tools as well. So they've done an amazing job with their MCP connector, which allows you, it's the only way, even if you use things like Data for SEO, which again, I use a lot, and I think it's a really good connector, being able to go into your own rank tracking tools and see your clients and interact directly within your clients within the Claude interface or ChatGPT makes such a big difference. I think SEMrush has bought out their version as well, but I haven't tested that just yet. But I think building dashboards and interfaces for people within these tools are not going to be relevant. I think people will end up building their own interfaces per client. So you'll have something very bespoke there. These tools need to understand what they have, which is unique. What is it that they've got? Is it that data intelligence that they've built up? What is it that they can give to that user so they can then build their tools and their workflows around it? I think that's one of the areas that is going to change quite heavily. You look at a lot of the platforms that are out there, the HubSpots, Monday and things like that. They're all giving you these connectors now to be able to work directly with your data. I think that is going to be one of the biggest areas that is going to change quite heavily.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's going to be interesting to see how it goes, and especially pricing situation. Because yeah, a lot of these things now, like you can build your own stuff very, like if you use Replit or whatever sort of other tools, are very affordable. If you're not offering something unique, like you say, you're going to be worth the price. There's large price points that some of these tools are offering. So,
Yeah.
that they have. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And there is so much you can do yourself now. It's well worth playing with these. I think Windsurf and Cursor is obviously my favorite. And using these tools, see what you can come up with. Let your creativity flow within that area.
Yeah.
There's tools I use on a daily basis I can't live without. One is Whisper Flow. I use that for speech to text. It allows you to type at a phenomenal rate. It also allows you your own dictionary entries into there as well. So you can personalize all of your words. So if it constantly spells things wrong, or you want to change the way that it's on there, you can do all those personalizations on there. You can create snippets and things in there. Just makes your life so much easier. It works on your mobile as well. And also use Speechify quite a lot as well. So those are two of the biggest tools that I'll use on a day-to-day basis. For instance, if I'll set up a workflow, I'll research the documentation, I'll then put that into an LLM. I'll get the LLM to do really deep research within that area. I'll then upload that into something like Speechify, and I'll listen to that whilst I'm running or at the gym or somewhere else. I'm now consuming all of that information back. I'm understanding it. And that's where you start seeing all the errors, things that have not quite, or the mistakes that it's made along the way. You can then sit down after that and you can then start rewording it, retyping it out and doing it the way you need it. It's just making your life so much easier, so much quicker. And it's not tying you to being at that desk the entire time doing it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's definitely like you said with Notebook LM, that's really shifted the way I learn and work on things like dramatically. And it seems such a basic tool now compared to others, but it's actually really It's really changed the game for me in terms of like reporting and understanding topics and so on.
Also,
Yeah, I did.
not hack, I would say, but with Notebook LLM, LM, if you feed in the top results for a certain query and then talk to the LLM, the model itself, it'll start telling you which one it's referenced. By knowing which one it referenced, you've got a pretty good idea of which one Google's referencing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There are ways, because they're giving you these tools that you can understand the thinking behind things a lot more. You know, like I say with Google Live, okay, it's not going to give you 100%, but it gives you something like more than we had before, I guess. So, yeah, cool. I could talk all day, but I know we both have things to get on with. So I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get you back on, do some live demos of that, because you've got so many cool things going on. So yeah, maybe create some more time.
Yeah. That's good.
So yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah. So I'll just say thank you. Thanks for joining me again. And yeah, speak soon.
Thanks very much for your time. It's been great speaking to you, and let's catch up again soon.